most of the people think this is the end of the pandemic. In about a couple months, we're going to have a vaccine or something like that. But actually, we are just at the very initial stage of a very, very long crisis that might take between 3 to 5 years. But we know from previous kind of pandemics that at the beginning people tend to lose confidence in their leaders. They tend to be very aggressive towards other groups. They tend to be melancholic about almost anything in their surrounding. But about 5 to 10 years after such a crisis, we know that people regain confidence. They are trying to restart new thinking about their social paradigms, etc., etc. One of those consequences is that people will be much attentive to understand uh, how connected we are as a species. They will understand how we are in a kind of symbiosis with each other. We are not just, affiliated. Those kind of terms, affiliation and, be part of a group or sharing, these are old, will be probably old terms of understanding how we connect with each other. Our connections are much, much deeper. They go through very deep layers of existence, and that consciousness will be much more, let's say, spread across very different kinds of social groups. There is an idea in quantum physics that says that particles are entangled with some other particles. The entanglement idea is that for each particle in this universe, there are other particles that are kind of connected in a symbiotic way. And whenever you do something on one particle, the other particle that is far away in a different place in the universe is reacting as if you were acting on him or on it specifically. So the idea of entanglement is probably one of the sources of this societal consciousness that is going to develop the more we enter the 21st century. So if you wish, this is something which is fascinating if we are to experience it. What happened in the last century was a similar process. Because after the Spanish flu, we started developing that idea of globalization that was the main idea of the 20th century. But globalization is a primitive stage of understanding how we are connected, because the globalization paradigm is based on a voluntarily kind of mindset. If I want to be part of a group of, let's say, institutes or nations, then it's my decision to make. If I decide that it's not doing me any good, then I retreat and that's it. But that's not a paradigm that can avoid such crisis, because the World Health Organization was based exactly upon that idea that it's a voluntarily kind of institute, and it didn't have any let's say authority to influence the nations to act upon their guidelines. So we will be able also to develop new institutes in the 21st century that will reflect the idea that we are really connected in a symbiotic way, and those institutes will be given authority to bring their decisions and their suggestions into play, even though nations and other, let's say, cultures will not accept those decisions. We will be giving them a lot of power to be able to institute their ideas. It looks and it sounds horrible to say at this point, because we're not exactly attuned to an international institute that will force local and national entities to do whatever they want. Even though we have been trying to do this in the last century, but we are moving towards the next stage of the development of that paradigm. In the short term, which is in the next 5-10 years, we're going to see um, hate crimes, skyrocketing. We're going to see uh, unusual leadership that is going to take over democracies. That by unusual, I mean, I don't want to, to be very blunt, but we're going to see leaders that are self-confident, that they'll be able to do things that others are not able to do, and we're going to see some characters that are going to be very colorful in the leadership area worldwide, in different places, more specifically in democracies. We are a species that is evolving. Unfortunately, one of the mechanisms of evolution is pandemics and, generally speaking, crises. And we have to be very patient to see how we evolve, because evolving is very it's not an easy process to go through. Most of the time it hurts. Most of the time people are not willing to change and to be very creative in new ways in order to survive. So if I am to say something somehow smart, I'll say we need patience, patience to go through these times. But humanity is evolving, and thank God we have crises that are hitting us in the head to awake from previous ideas. If we are to learn something from the past and from previous pandemics, we know that whoever was organized in very tight communities have a greater chance to go in those times without significant byproducts, if you wish. But because communal um, organization is something that can provide for the very individual person, provide psychological, how should I say it, um, maybe umbrella, and financial assistance in times that a person, an individual, needs that assistance. The national entities and institutions in those kind of times have hard time understanding the genuine needs of individuals, and they have hard time acting as fast as possible in order to address those needs in an immediate way. The only organizational entities that are able to act very fast and really be attentive to genuine needs are our communities. And whoever is not part of a community, this is the time to be part of a community. And by community, I mean any type of community. But that community needs to be constantly in contact with each other and with the group. And by constantly nowadays we have technologies; it's much easier to do.